How to start up in 90 days. Pro tip number one, pick a North Star. What is a North Star? Well, your North Star, as you see here, is the one metric that predicts the most traction in revenue, customer value, and sales velocity, either one or all of them combined. So you're looking for that one metric that is going to really prove that you've got traction in your startup, which is a combination of revenue. That is, if it's possible, you might not be revenue generating at the moment, or it happens to be customer signups. And the customer signups indicate that they're seeing value, and there is a value to those customers that are signing up, those users, or sales velocity that shows that you've got momentum on your side, because the more velocity your startup has, well, guess what? The more traction it's going to have, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of times founders get overwhelmed by all the different KPIs and the OKRs and all the things that you can measure as you see all the dashboards and what have you. And so it's important to try and focus it down to the North Star. So let's give examples of the North Star here. What would be one of them? Well, first is think about what Facebook did was they wanted monthly active users. So what they said is, if we can increase monthly active users that use Facebook every month, and we can increase that usage, they keep coming back and they don't just register once and then fall off. Well, that's going to indicate revenue, which in that case would have been equal to advertising, customer value. So the more eyeballs there are, the more audience there is, the more people pay for those ads, and sales velocity, that more people are signing up and using Facebook on a consistent basis. That is going to allow better sales velocity. You see how all that comes together. So then let's also talk about Uber. And Uber is rides booked. So in this case, it's not just good enough that someone downloads the app and opens the app and maybe uses the app once a month, fine, but how many rides are booked all the time and probably on a weekly basis or a monthly basis? For example, one person could be booking 10 rides a week, which is great because each one of those rides means there's a transaction happening between the supply and demand of a two-sided marketplace, which is going to lead to revenue because they take a piece of every ride that's paid for, the value of the customer, that customer is using the ride sharing app and getting rides more often, and then also sales velocity. So you're throttling up and you're going to get more customers, and we have more customers, you're going to need more people who drive the cars, more drivers, supply and demand all work together. So that is going to increase traction. Now let's look at one more, which is Spotify. And Spotify's North Star was time listened. So let's look at how that works. So the more time, I'm a Spotify user, the more time somebody spends on Spotify, when I first downloaded Spotify, when I was listening, the more time I spent, guess what? The more ads that I heard. And then I wanted to just upgrade to the premium version, the actual paid version, which got rid of the ads. And that's really great for Spotify. Also, at the same time, if I listened to more and I didn't decide to upgrade, well, then guess what? Advertisers are paying. It's the same thing as Facebook. So that's just going to equal more revenue, customer value, and depending on the customer value, either watching or listening to a lot of ads at that moment, or paying for the premium subscription, and that indicates sales velocity. You're always going to win if you can show more sales and have those sales increase exponentially as far as their velocity is concerned. Believe me, every startup loves that because investors love that. The market loves that. You're going to get PR, all those things. So that's how you pick a North Star, and you want to pick one North Star. And I'll often talk to founders and they'll say, I've got all these KPIs that I want to get done. I say, how are we going to measure this according to one North Star? And sometimes it takes a little bit of conversation. And that's what your startup advisor is for. That's what your office hours are for, and your fellow founders are for, to have that conversation on a regular basis so that you can share with people what your North Star is, but also celebrate, because North Stars are really easy to measure. You're either hitting that North Star or you're not. And so that's a great way to keep yourself accountable and keep your startup focused. So that's pro tip number one. If you want to get it going, get your startup going in 90 days, get your startup on in 90 days, pick a North Star.